Joseph, Kay, and Patrick Morrissey were a perfect, happy family. Joe Morrissey loved country music, but his wife, Kay, never paid much attention to it. How could the cheery mom of an adorable 5-year-old, who thanked God morning and night for the blessings of a loving husband and a comfortable home, relate to those weepy lyrics about tragedy and heartbreak? Tragedy did strike when Joe was killed on April 5, 2010. That night, 5-year-old Patrick saw what he should not have seen and also became a hero, all because he followed the instructions of his father to pretend to be asleep. Joseph James Morrissey grew up in Palm Beach County, where he and his younger brother, John, graduated from Lake Worth High School. Joe held degrees from the University of South Florida, the University of Miami, and Stanford, and molecular biology from medical school. He worked a year at Boston's renowned Dana-Farber Cancer Institute and specialized in childhood leukemia research. In the 1990s, he patented a blood test kit which, according to his brother, will greatly reduce the cost and pain of detecting and typing certain leukemias, replacing bone marrow tests. Joe, a cancer researcher with a doctorate from Stanford University and an international reputation, taught pharmacology at Nova Southeastern University. That's where he met Kay. Joe Morrissey and Linda Kay Ramirez Llanos, both divorced, met at the Goodwin Institute for Cancer Research and Plantation. She was studying microbiology at Nova Southeastern. He was conducting research. He had a son. She had a daughter. They were a perfect match for each other. Joe proposed to Kay in Rome. They married in October 1997 and tried, unsuccessfully, to have a child before adopting Patrick, whom they'd adopted as an infant from South Korea, that they'd playfully fight about who'd get to feed and change him. They were planning to adopt a second Korean baby, a little girl with a cleft palate. Joe loved the water and took up water skiing and fishing. Years later, he built a 12-foot wooden runabout in the garage to take Kay and Patrick fishing in Biscayne Bay. Around early midnight of April 5, 2010, 2 male intruders broke into Joe's home and kidnapped him and Kay while Patrick was sleeping. The couple was then forced to drive to a bank at the moment and withdraw $500. The robbers told Joe not to do anything funny because someone was back at the house with their son. The robbers then returned with Joe and Kay home and tied their hands and feet with zip ties. Joe was made to hop to the other room where one of the men stabbed him to death, despite him begging for mercy. Intending to kill Kay and Patrick, the robbers left after setting the house on fire. However, Kay managed to free herself with her son's help, and they escaped the burning house. The fire alarm prompted the police to arrive on the scene and find Joe lying on the porch covered in his blood. Kay's testimony subsequently proved that she was not a suspect. Morrissey's wife, Kay, who was bound in the master bedroom, told police she immediately suspected Tundeter Sr., who is Randy Willem Tundeter, and a young man she had seen at Morrissey's house. She said her husband, William Tundeter, had been feuding over Morrissey's efforts to evict him. Police said Tundeter Sr. was a tenant of Joe Morrissey's who had been involved in a dispute involving a personal injury lawsuit. Just 4 days before the murder, Dr. Morrissey had sent Tundeter a letter stating that he was in default of security deposits. According to an arrest affidavit, Tundeter Sr. was enraged that Morrissey was going to evict him. "Joe, the landlord, fucked with me. He fucked with the wrong one and wants to put us on the streets," Randy Sr. told his other son, Sean. According to the affidavit, the morning after Nova Southeastern University professor Joseph Morrissey was stabbed to death and his home set on fire, Sean Tundeter said he woke up to overhear something about a murder. It was his older brother, Randy Tundeter Jr., watching the news. Usually, all Randy cared about was getting his crack cocaine, Sean Tundeter said. But Wednesday morning, his brother was especially nervous. Sean followed his brother as he walked outside to smoke a cigarette and asked if he had anything to do with the murder on TV. "Go ask Dad," was Randy's reply, according to a probable cause affidavit given to the Miami Herald by the attorney representing Randy Tundeter Jr. Later that day, Randy Tundeter Jr. was taken into custody by a SWAT team at Beverly Hills Cafe in Plantation. He had just taken a bite of his chicken fingers when police stormed the restaurant. He didn't say a word, but dropped a fistful of money he'd been clutching, $152. Tundeter Jr. had been held in jail for a probation violation until Sunday when he was formally charged with premeditated murder, kidnapping, arson, and home invasion robbery. Police on Thursday and Friday searched the Tundeters' rental home, a townhouse in Plantation owned by Morrissey, and the family business, Gator Tints and Sound, which offers car window tinting. There they found gray gloves, plastic zip ties, European currency, 2 laptops, and an empty box where a knife had been displayed for sale. Sean Tundeter went on TV, professing his brother's innocence. Sean Tunador was at home with his father and stepmother the night of April 8 when he made the recording after Tunador Jr.'s arrest on a probation violation charge. Tunador Jr.'s arrest didn't jibe with Sean Tunador. He told police his father had admitted he killed Morrissey. He said he thought his father was going to try to pin it all on my brother. Sean Tunador said he also wanted to ensure that his stepmother and stepbrothers remained safe, so he agreed to wear a device that recorded 7 hours, approximately 14 minutes of which had Tunador Sr. talking about the slaying as he watched a TV news report about it. In the recording, Tunador Sr. told Sean that there was no case and it was weak because the police had no murder weapon. Kay, Morrissey's wife, can't even identify him, and she can't even identify Randy. Tunador Sr. also discussed a speaker box at his car window tinting business. Police said they found the Morrisseys' 2 stolen laptops hidden inside the box. Prosecutors did not have physical evidence placing Tunador Sr. at the scene of the slaying. What they did have was testimony from Tunador Sr's son, Randy Jr., who pleaded guilty to a reduced charge of second-degree murder to avoid the death penalty. During his father's trial, Randy H. Tunador testified that he was a drug-addicted drifter who broke into the Morrisseys' home, held the couple at gunpoint, bound their hands and feet with plastic ties, rummaged through their house for valuables, and forced them to drive to an at the moment to withdraw cash. But it was his father who plotted the crime and fatally stabbed Morrissey. When they returned, Joseph was stabbed to death. Their house was set on fire with Kay and her son Patrick inside. Patrick was able to bring her scissors to remove her bindings and free her. Kay said he was her hero, and that she couldn't go into the details, but he was her hero. It's like she looks up to him. The first thing I thought was, "You're gonna have to be strong," she said. "Your husband's hurt and your child is 5 years old and you're going to have to do this." She's had to rely on all of that strength, especially when Patrick asks questions about what happened to his father. Sometimes she feels like her heart is on the floor, Kay explained. She goes down, picks it up, and puts it back because she doesn't know what else to do, just to give her the 2 seconds to respond to Patrick's questions. The whys and the what-ifs. Kay remembered a plane trip she took with her son a few months after the murder. The profound nature of her son's questions stunned her. "When we get in the airplane," he said, "Mom, are we on the other side of the clouds? Is this heaven?" she recalled. She's also had to handle the aftermath of her husband's murder all alone. "I lost my best friend at a time when you need your friend the most," she said. "He's not there to help you deal with all this." Kay had little to say about Randy Tunador Sr. She plans to wait until after his sentencing to speak about him. Tunador Sr. was to be sentenced to death, and Kay didn't wish to speak publicly about the punishment she believed he should receive. But this petite, soft-spoken woman who was dedicated to her faith and to providing a good life for her son spoke volumes about her husband and the work he was doing. After his arrest, Kay Morrissey identified Randy Tunador Jr. in a police lineup and was 85% sure he was the robber who killed her husband. Randy Headley Tunador was a 21-year-old kid with theft, dealing in stolen property, and trespass charges. His first known criminal charge came in 2006, when he was charged with possession of tobacco while under the age of 18. His lawyers told the media that Tunador's bipolar and has had drug problems in the past. Part of his probation for a 2007 theft case involved a treatment program, spared the death penalty after taking part in the brutal home invasion murder of a Nova Southeastern University professor 2 years ago. Randy H. Tunador was sentenced Friday in a Broward courtroom to 40 years in prison. It was a lighter sentence than requested by the wife of the victim. Linda Morrissey had asked that Tunador spend the rest of his life in prison. Kay Morrissey told The Huge before sentencing that the entire family believed that Randy Tunador Jr. deserved to die. They recommended that he receive life in prison without the possibility of parole. However, Broward Circuit Court Judge Cynthia Imperato said the son's willingness to testify against his father should be taken into consideration. Tunador Jr. testified in April during the first-degree murder trial of his father, Randy W. Tunador, that he thought they were going to the plantation home of Joseph Morrissey, Tunador Sr., landlord, to scare him on the night of April 5, 2010. Tunador Sr. was upset with Morrissey and wanted to send a message after receiving a letter from Morrissey that day demanding overdue rent, but the crime quickly escalated to a home invasion, murder, and arson that shocked South Florida for its brutality. After stabbing Morrissey to death, the Tunador Sr. turned his attention to Kay Morrissey and the couple's young son, Patrick. He wanted them dead. But Tunador Jr. told the jury that he couldn't kill them. "I can't do that," he said he told his father. "I can't kill no kid." Tunador Sr. became upset. His son testified and went into the Morrissey's garage, where he instructed his son to grab a gasoline can. Randy W. Tundador poured it around Morrissey's body in the kitchen area, and then he lit a paper towel on fire and dropped it on the gasoline while Linda Morrissey, still bound at her hands and feet, and son Patrick, then 5, remained in the master bedroom. Randy Tundador Jr. testified that his father murdered Morrissey with a 16-inch Bowie knife and that after the crime, his father ground the blade with a power tool. Randy H. Tundador said he threw the murder weapon in a lake. Police never recovered the Bowie knife, and prosecutors presented no physical evidence of placing Tundador Sr. at the Morrissey's house on the night of the murder. Randy H. Tundador, though, was tied to the crime scene through DNA evidence he left on the gasoline can cap and Joseph Morrissey's blood, which was found on the sleeve of his t-shirt. Still, prosecutors presented the jury with plenty of evidence pointing to the elder Tundador as the killer. Among that evidence are letters the elder Tundador wrote to his son while in prison, after the younger Tundador agreed to testify against his father. Though the content of the letters was not read into the record at trial, the younger Tundador said his father was instructing him to cover up certain things and was trying to persuade him not to testify. Randy H. Tundador initially refused to implicate his father, but said he changed his mind after realizing that his father, Randy W. Tundador, wanted to blame his sons for the fact that my father would sit here and say it's me and my brother who did this. That's wrong, Randy said. You shouldn't hurt your kids. A father's job is to protect his kids. Joe had no life insurance beyond a university policy equal to 1 year's salary, so the loss of his income has drastically altered the way his widow and son live. While their empty house deteriorates, they're in a rented apartment. Ice hockey and kung fu are no longer in the budget. She and Patrick collected $19,000 from the Florida Victims Compensation Program, mainly reimbursement for funeral expenses. She said it took 2 years for the state to respond to her requests for more money, and the answer was no. There's a big misconception of how much help you're going to get, Kay said. Kay Morrissey suffers flashbacks from the violence she and her family endured inside their plantation home. But the woman who calls herself a problem solver is not focused on the past. Rather, she is focused on providing a new life for her and her son. The world lost a great scientist that night. Kay Morrissey also thinks people should understand that being a victim in real life is nothing like it is on television. She enjoys watching the Tundadors shuffle across the courtroom in prison stripes and shackles, knowing she can walk away freely and Senior, at least, never will. Years from now, when the state of Florida finally executes Randy William Tundador, Kay Morrissey pledges to be watching. Patrick could well be an adult by then, free to decide if he'll go. She wants to be there, and she has every right to be there. For more videos like this, like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching.